Hi everyone, Cecilia here. Today I invited new ISSIP Ambassador Alka based out of San Francisco. Alka is an expert in responsible AI. I'm so excited to have her here today. And could you introduce yourself, Alka, to the ISSIP community?
Well, hi, Cecilia, and I say hello to the ISSIP community as well. I am very excited to be here. I'm definitely been working on the Responsible Innovation Project and RI Labs, which we'll talk about a little bit. My background comes in deeper tech. I'm really just interested in how things work, how our worlds work. So, which are many worlds. and I started in the deeper tech, engineering background, emerging tech, so wireless, conversational AI, started with neural net, IoT, but we know they all kind of converge together.
Yeah.
So I became interested in products and services that were sitting on top of it. And the last corporate gig I had a few years ago was at the AT&T Innovation Center in Palo Alto. And since then, I've been just having an amazing sort of aha moments
Mhm.
in and moving in different circles and
Wow.
systems.
Okay.
Um, the academic circle, so
Mhm.
universities, I've taught at universities. I also designed courses for edX and Linux
Oh,
Foundation.
wow.
So
Exciting. What kind of courses are they?
there's two courses that are available. One is on AI, data science, and ethics.
Mhm.
And what I have been doing, and the other one is on 5G, IoT, edge,
Oh,
like
wow.
all of those industries. So the thing that I've been working on these courses is to, whether we're talking about ethics or
Mhm.
we're talking about wireless, is to integrate and explore our excitement for technology
Mhm.
with excitement for social responsibility and well-being as well, and
Mhm.
integrating it in that. So if we're talking about, say, AI and data science ethics, first we need to understand what we call AI. What
Mhm.
is data science? So we start
Absolutely.
there. And
Mhm.
if we're talking about 5G, we not only need to understand how 5G works and how do you do, spectrum design, but you have to understand when you put cell sites in someone's backyard, or, if you use it social media on cell sites excessively, or you keep your phone on all the time, based on how you design something, people use it. And what could the impact be?
Yeah.
So embedding those questions, that's been
Sure.
my experiment. And
Mhm.
so far, I've done two versions of the courses. And that is what I find I hear the most feedback on, is that this is missing in
Mhm.
education, in the making of tech. And so that's been really exciting. And a couple other places I've been really fortunate to have engaged in is policy work and sort of rules around guardrails we're building around this. And finally, my love is to make stuff. So I'm definitely staying in touch with the industry.
That's really interesting, Alka, because like you come from strong theoretical background as well as prototyping, and they, basically turn that theory into something tangible. And then also you touched upon, integrating IoT, all the 5G with AI, and then that touches upon service science, the service systems thinking as well, where many ISAP ambassadors are involved in. Could you tell us about your motivation for joining the ISAP community as an ISAP ambassador?
So the last gig I mentioned to you, which was at the Innovation Center, that's where I met Jim, who's the founder of ISEP, and we were working on the Trusted AI committee at Linux Foundation. And I wasn't sure where that was going, but one of the coolest thing we did out of that I was part of was that we put out the AI principles,
Mhm.
for the entire Linux Foundation and AI and data science community. So that was really an interesting exercise, not only in what we came up with, but that we had to agree across many different industries that were participating, and how and where uh, what we say we want versus what we really want, the gap between that, exploring that, and how do we collaborate it. So that's how I got introduced to Jim. And what I like about, always admired about Jim, and what attracted me to ISSIP was that we don't always agree. And he doesn't have to agree with me to support my work or understand my work. So that's been a really amazing lesson for me. And I think it's a rare and should be much coveted leadership quality. So that's my reason for joining and getting to know this group of people more and hopefully collaborating with them in
That
projects and areas.
that leads to my next question, Alka, because I know that you mentioned about very interesting project called the Good Stuff Project. Could you
Mhm.
share with us a little bit more about what that is?
Absolutely. So we like calling things projects because that gives us a little bit of, autonomy and flexibility. So this is something I've been sitting on for years, and I've been struggling what to call it. And we've now finally are launching it. I'm so excited for the nominations, and I invite the ISSIP community to submit their nominations. What we're really looking to do, Cecilia, is to, with the help of this community and building capacity, redefine what success could and should look like within our tech and business community. So if we managed our fiscal responsibility with our social responsibility, or as I mentioned earlier, excitement for innovation and fiscal excitement with the excitement for doing good and doing something that also serves our society and our world that we live in, um, that would be great. And I know people are doing it. And so
That,
this
yeah.
Good Stuff project and this nomination is our way to teasing out those people who are busy doing that good work to give them not only more visibility, but learn from them, use them as examples. And instead of just paying attention to what's not working well, which, kind of makes us anxious or sort of restless, is to see, oh, wow, there's so many people quietly doing amazing work. And we could do that too, or we could partner with them. And so I just think the possibilities are endless. And we're starting with this very restrained first step, which is to weeding out and giving more visibility and getting to know people who are
That
doing good stuff already.
that sounds really exciting, and I'm so keen to get involved as well, Alka. And then I'm sure a lot of ISA ambassadors are so keen to get involved too. Um, could you tell us a little more about your RI lab as well? Because I know that you're doing a lot of different things, like entrepreneur, managing a lot of different projects. And then I'm so keen to learn more about what you guys actually build at your lab.
So we are basically doing a series of experiments, or we've been doing a series of experiments. And these projects like Responsible Innovation Project, Good Stuff Project, we had a future of leadership effort that we did. We had a founder circle. So as I mentioned to you, we're basically going to different communities that have a deep commitment to innovation
Mm.
and building the new emerging tech where the rules are not defined, where we don't really understand the impact of what we're building or how we're building it. And we're trying to proactively say, what if we, you know, thought about considerations around the impact of things early on? What would that look like? What would that look like to the founder community, to funding agencies, when we're thinking about policy, when we're thinking about Gen AI? So, I've worked with AI companies, for example, where we sat down and looked at their algorithm and said, well, we raised questions because sometimes we don't teach our young people who come in or becoming founders, or sometimes they're not even young. We don't teach them how to consider and think about impact. So we've sat down with some companies who were early on small size, and now they're doing great, and they're big companies, and they've pivoted. Cecilia, they've pivoted and changed how they use their algorithms so that it's less targeting.
Amazing.
They're more inclusive uh, parameters that have been put in place, and they're excited by it.
Yeah.
So they're still talking to us. So I think that's good news. They don't say, "Oh my gosh, you kept me from making tons of money," but they're coming and saying, "Wow, I really feel good about what I made and the changes I made with where I used the algorithm." I'm being careful about using them as an example because it's confidential. the pivots they've taken. But if we weren't recording it, I'll tell you who they are. Um, and so it's been really amazing to see not only what we can do, but really what the limitations are. So, for example, when you're working with founders,
Mhm.
you know, a startup is constantly evolving. So when new people come in, new funders come in, new leaders come in, every time it can change its flavor and its course. So you have to stick with it. So first of all, having a thesis very early on, or having a sort of a stake in the ground, saying, hey, these considerations are non-negotiables for me, have been really amazingly effective. But you have to reinforce it each time a new player comes into the picture.
Definitely.
So it's a very exhausting process if it's not a norm. And so one of the other things we're trying to do with Good Stuff Project or RL Labs and Responsible Innovation Project is to say, how can we actually shift the ecosystem so that the
Mhm.
design norms, engineering norms, AI norms, how we teach it, how we make it, literally includes this consideration. So it kind of removes the cognitive load, the
Mm.
dissonance that we always hear, like, oh, are you being like soft? No, we're just being smart. We are building trust long term, you know? And
Really
so
good.
we've been using trust language, we've been exploring what language works. And so those are the series of experiments we're doing. And as I mentioned to you, the courses, like the open source courses that we worked on, those were kind of our effort. Those are experiments.
I
Does
mean,
that make sense? So, yeah.
definitely. I'm very interested in like your phrase, your statement on we're trying to shift to the ecosystem. Could you tell me like about how you guys measure success? Because it takes a bit of a time to shift to ecosystem per se, because the ecosystem itself is pretty big, right? Because in AI ecosystem, it involves a lot of different bits and nuts and bolts as well. How do you measure success here? Like you made an impact.
So, for us, it's really the few measures of success for us has been the long-term engagement of some of the key people in this project. Because as you know, our industry is fickle. If you don't produce results for them, you can't. You're not going to stick around and survive. As far as metrics, we've explored a lot of things. So right now we have an assessment, like an RI assessment that we do with people. And so we can see where the shifts are for them. So, and the shifts are different for everyone because the level of like trust or safety or other things that they need is very dependent on their the way they define it, who their customers are. So if they're building a game for kids, for example, it's a very different metric for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's I could show you some charts that we use, but they're really at the end of the day, it's really interesting to me because a lot of people were saying, hey, this isn't going to work. It's going to be irrelevant. We need this metric or that metric. And over the years, we've just become more and more relevant. So when Gen AI came in, a lot of people came out when open source
Model, large language model.
larger language models went sort of ballistic in 2022, 23, now 24, just more and more so. So many people came in and said, oh, remember those social chatbot, case studies you did for us? It finally makes sense to us. Aren't you feeling great about all the things you warned us about? And I said, no, I'm not feeling great because the scale
Yeah.
at which everything is happening is huge. And, we only scratch. I'll just tell you honestly, we scratch the tips of the iceberg.
Great. Yeah.
You know, we will be successful when we're irrelevant. So if I don't have to say responsible innovation, and innovation by its definition, that's how I measure the success, is
Definitely.
that when we become irrelevant, and it's just basically innovation, responsible innovation is embedded into innovation. Because
Yeah.
think about the alternative, Cecilia. We've been doing irresponsible innovation, but how many people say that? How many people say,
Sure.
let's go destroy some communities, let's treat people
Yeah.
some badly, let's keep, make a platform that's really unsafe for our children? Because, I go and talk, I give keynotes everywhere globally. I talk to adults, I talk to C-suites, I also talk to kids in schools.
I love that.
And, yeah, and I was in a third grade class. I mentioned I was telling you about this. And, one of the kids, he raised his hand and said, why have you made our games and internet so unsafe that my parents are freaking out
Completely makes
when
sense.
I'm on it?
It's a valid question, I would say, right?
Right. So, for us, success would be that the ecosystem has absorbed this idea,
Yeah,
into its the way it
that
makes
normalizes,
things.
right? Basically, the
Right.
responsible innovation is normalized.
Well, and really, Cecilia, really, if we're just calling things and keeping it real, uh, it's really the gap I find between what we say and what we do.
Agree.
And kids are very good at catching this hypocrisy, this gap. And I know that some social norms are sort of built on it. And, we kind of, we call that sophistication, marketing, PR, a lot of those things. And so we've given it institutional names, systems, and really made them disciplines. But really, when they go too far, when the gap is so great that we forget what's real, when we forget that AI is a thing, it's not a companion, it's not a partner, it's not a friend, it does not have feelings. So that's the other thing, kids asked me when I went to their school, they said, do robots have feelings? And if they don't, why are you designing them to look like people? Like they're really catching us at the core of the issue. We're confusing ourselves. And the question is, are we going to remember that? So as
Mm.
long as it's for fun, right? We dress something up, and we create something, and we understand what it is. It's a
Yeah,
game, and it's fine. But what if it enters our private lives? What if at some point we're like literally getting into, you and I talked about this partnership. What if someone's like, I choose this robot to my life, be like lifelong
that
companion?
is too much there, but yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
But
that's too much. But there's also the emotional AI, right? Maybe that's just like, I don't want to divert our conversation, but like there's an emotional AI, Songtian robot. And then in fact, they add a lot of value, especially in mental health domain as well. Yeah, social isolation.
yeah, and so the question is really at what cost? So,
Mm,
it's always uh, definitely, I'm a tech enthusiast. I love the convenience of it. I love using it. I also like to keep it at bay in the sense of like keep it useful and use it appropriately,
mhm.
right? So my car can go very, very fast, but I know that in school zones and in my neighborhood, I will drive within the speed limit or I'll drive the way I need to drive. So just because we can, you know, we shouldn't. So I think, if we were using an social chatbot or a chatbot that has mimics our emotion. Just
Mhm.
remember they're mimicking our emotions. But if those mimicking of emotions are being used to drive adoption or confuse us,
Mm, mm.
right? Then that becomes a problem, right?
Oh,
So
yeah,
if
absolutely. Yeah. Emotional manipulation, right? So like human cannot be manipulated by the robots or machine, basically.
And so the question is what limits are being put in place in the
Exactly.
design? And
Found there.
designers are really an amazing community. I know ISSIP has a lot of those community. They're
Yeah.
really great. They get it. They really,
Yeah.
really do get it.
Yeah. I'm a
And they
designer. Yeah.
yeah, and they try to tell everybody like don't do that,
Yeah.
because I used to manage UX designers and engineers and PMs and testers, and I know they all have their own language. And this is what I'm talking about.
True.
If we embed this understanding within the community and say, yes, you can make that, but when you make that, these sort of dangers or problems could exist. How are you going to design around it?
Mm,
How do you raise a flag and say, all right, understand that I'm a thing, I'm a system designed by people, I'm constantly
mm,
changing, I'm not as, consistent and reliable as you think, I can be turned off. Because, there have been situations where um, there were solutions where people have embedded nanotechnology or machines
yeah.
in their body,
Mm,
and that has allowed them to build on, or sort of close the gap on disabilities.
mm,
But then that company went bust and the product got discontinued. And
mm,
now this person has to remove it and they just don't understand. How can they regress like that? And because it's a thing. So when something is a thing, it cannot be a friend or a partner, your therapist. It can just dole out advice that has been, it's been programmed or trained or designed to give you, which means it can be designed and redesigned to give you really crappy advice as well. So until those protections are in place, we've got to be very careful.
Yeah. Agreed.
With how much we rely on it.
Exactly.
And it's all it is about tempering. People always make it like a binary, like this or that conversation. What I'm saying is, yes, play with its, capabilities, but something that's a research project ought not to be rolled out to the entire population, human population, until we understand the implications. So that discipline has to be built into the ecosystem, and it's going to come from all of these worlds we talked about: academic, research, systems thinking that ISSIP has.
Definitely, Alka. That's the foundation of responsible innovation, what you're advocating. Thank you so much for such an interesting conversation today. Before we close this talk, do you have any final thoughts or remarks you want to share with the ISSIP community?
Well, I'm really excited to engage with the community. This Good Stuff project we're working on will have so many ways to build capacity and sort of recharge the community. I would invite the ISSIP community to engage, nominate your project or projects or content that you've come across that you think will be helpful to others, and then come up with your ideas. Jim and I have been talking about hosting a symposium, an event, and really percolating what people are doing. And the last thing I would say is I get so many requests to give talks or to teach or to coach or to help other people. And I'm trying to build that capacity. So if within your community, if you're interested in it, if you have courses, you have papers, you have research that you really think plugs in here, anything in this message resonates with you, please reach out, please participate, and we can, do something together with ISSIP as well. So all ideas are welcome.
Wonderful. We're going to share the link so the ISSIP community can definitely submit their ideas and then share their work as well. Thank you so much, Alka, for joining us today. And then thanks everyone for tuning in. We look forward to meeting you next time.